Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Sunday morning. With us today is General David Petraeus, 4 stars, CIA, head of the CIA, has done everything in our military, has done everything for our country, and still speaks out for our country. Well, General, where do you want to begin? I mean, it seems like Iran is on the front page. And nobody really knows what the heck is going on. Go ahead.
Well, the president obviously has had a number of meetings to discuss possible options for Iran, and they run the entire gamut, of course. There's diplomatic, there's economic, more sanctions. In fact, he actually did put some tariffs on those that trade with Iran, 25%, not trivial. There's cyber actions you can take, informational initiatives to try to help the Iranian people communicate with each other and with the outside world. That's all been cut off to the extent that the government there can. There's humanitarian options, and of course there are military options of various types. And I suspect that he was narrowing in on some of the military options and some of the others, to be sure, as well. And he got a communication 2 days ago, I guess it was, that from Iran that said there will be no execution. That was one of the big issues. And the killing is, as the president said, is going to stop. That coincided with what seems to be a reduction in the amount of demonstrations, because the Iranians, of course, have killed thousands of their own citizens. They have enormous security forces. The police, the besieged militia, which could number as much as 1 or more million, which have a national, provincial, district, and then even municipal headquarters for each one. They're the pipe swingers. They'll shoot people as well. And I think the cumulative toll, also reportedly well over 10,000 have been arrested, has just begun to prevail here. At the end of the day, I think it was always to be expected that the regime was going to prevail, just because they have everything to lose if the regime, and because they are so substantial in numbers. And they even can call on, of course, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, which has its own Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, because the regime for years didn't trust the actual Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. They wanted something that would ensure regime survival, and that is what seems to have happened. And I think that message, plus seeing the numbers of demonstrations coming down, probably prompted the president to delay, see where this goes, and to see whether or not he should take military action. Keeping in mind that, in truth, there's really not something that we could do that would help this leaderless group of demonstrators, massive numbers. And that's one of the challenges, of course, is they have no structure, there's no leader, there's no chain of command or anything like that, as was the case when it was the so-called Green Revolution that they had some years back, which didn't succeed either. But they could hit certainly headquarters of the besieged militia, the Ministry of Interior, security forces, again, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, even the leadership locations itself. And I don't know that that would be a material assistance necessarily to the people on the streets. And at the end of the day, I think the base case always, that I've always expected, and I think most other close observers, was that the regime was going to be able to prevail, even though, without question, the regime is, in a way, is dying a slow death, but one can never predict when that might actually end. They have so mismanaged the economy that inflation has gone very high. The real, their currency, has plummeted to an all-time low. And there's really not much the government can do to compensate for that with the people. They announced that they were going to give them the equivalent of $7 per month to try to offset what has happened, and that was largely greeted with derision. So that's where we are at this moment in time. And I think, again, that the regime will prevail, although there's always the possibility, John, that elements within the regime could assume the leadership. The supreme leader is obviously very, very old, supposedly infirm. There's not a designated leader. There's no succession plan. His son is one who could actually take over. That's probably not all that popular with the regime forces that are in the security services. And it's possible that some elements there could conspire together and make a play to take over the leadership so that you end up with a military-run country. But that's just not clear at this point in time.
Now, we got that on the front burner. We have Cuba doesn't have any oil or water or anything. We got Ukraine. We got Russia. I mean, what happens first?
Well, let's just start, I guess, in our own hemisphere with Venezuela, where the operation to bring President Maduro and his wife to justice was just nothing short of amazing. And John, I have to say, looking at the numbers that have come out, for example, that some 30 Cuban special forces who were around the president and augmenting his Venezuelan secret service got killed, among many others. I think this was a much dicier operation than people realize. Everyone just focuses, well, we didn't lose a soldier. Well, John, the lead pilot of the lead aircraft, which is one of the really large MH-47 Chinooks modified for special ops, actually got hit as it was coming in. The pilot got hit 3 times in the leg, and I'm sure everyone's heart was in their mouth where they were watching this, because you have lots of overhead surveillance to beam that back to you. And the pilot stuck the landing and managed, and got all the operators got off, and then managed to recover the aircraft to an appropriate location. So I think, again, this was a much, much sportier and riskier operation than one might sense when we say, well, no one was killed. I do believe 7 were wounded, but really an extraordinary operation. 150 aircraft, 20 different launch sites, carried this out perfectly, took out all of the sophisticated Chinese and Russian air defenses of which Maduro was so proud, neutralized all the other response forces in various ways, and then extraordinary skill by those that were actually the ones that apprehended the president and then evacuated him to be brought to justice in New York. Now, of course, the question is, what is the ultimate outcome here? The president seems reasonably satisfied with the vice president who now has become the president. By the way, she's known to be a pragmatist. The Minister of Defense and the Minister of Interior, who goes by enforcer, they are not. But now we're going to guide them through, presumably, an awful lot of intense negotiations. But is the ultimate outcome, when I hear the Secretary of State or even the President use the word transition, one thinks that at the end there will be either the installation of the leaders who won the election of 2024 by a 2-to-1 margin. That's an election that was run by Maduro and his regime. Or will there be a new election for a new democratically elected government? And that's just not known at this time. Obviously, there's a lot of work intensively right now to try to create the conditions that the oil majors understandably want to see in terms of various legal agreements and so forth and so on. But of course, there's much, much more beyond that. And I can only assume that the people of Venezuela who voted so overwhelmingly for the opposition candidate will not be pleased to see the current regime stay in power in the way that they are. So there's going to be a lot of tricky negotiating, I suspect, down the road. There will be some amnesty for some individuals, no doubt, and having seen what happened when Maduro passed up his chance to go to a nice exile, say, in the Eastern Med and beach in Turkey or something, instead will spend the rest of his life presumably in a federal penitentiary. I think that choice should be relatively straightforward, but a lot of details there. And then you mentioned Cuba, and you're exactly right. This will now deprive Cuba of its energy source. They won't get crude oil from Venezuela. They also have problems with their water supply. It's really an economy that is on the verge of complete collapse. It's just the vestiges of free market capitalism that they allow, but only up to a certain size. They won't allow too many employees. So it's an economy that is, again, a true basket case. And I assume that this would be the next domino to fall. But once again, it's hard to imagine how this regime might give up, but noting that it's not quite the extraordinarily high numbers and armed forces of Iran, noting that Iran is obviously a vastly larger country as well.
General, we're just about out of time, but we do have to continue this conversation in the near future.
Sure.
Because we have to talk about Russia, Ukraine, Mexico. Are we ever going to make America drug-free by taking care of what's wrong in Mexico? But I look forward again to having continue this discussion in the near future.
It'll be a pleasure.
Thank you so
very
much.
John.
General Petraeus, thank you for doing what you did for our country and continue to do for our country. Thank you so much.
Greatest of privileges. Thank you.
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.